1 Peter chapter 3. And we are going to start from verse 8. Okay, did you have any problem to come to church today? Did you have, for example, did the government try to stop you to come to church today? Okay. Did you have to hide to come to church? We are so privileged, isn't it? That we can come to church and worship the Lord freely without having to hide from the police or the government or people around you. I think as Christians we have had it easy, but not every Christian in the world have the same privilege. So imagine that you are a Christian of the early church. We are going back to the year 64 AD, and you are a Christian on the Nero's persecution, and you are part of the church in Rome. And just imagine that there is a night in Rome, thousands of spectators gathered in Nero's gardens, their faces lit by the eerie glow of torches. But these are not ordinary torches. Christians bound to wooden stakes are set aflame to illuminate the night. Their cries of agony pierce the air, blending with the laughter and cheers of the Roman crowd. Nearby, other Christians are dressed in animal skins and thrown into an arena. Packs of wild dogs are unleashed, tearing the helpless victims apart while spectators cheer and drink. In yet another corner of the spectacle, crosses line the pathway, each bearing the broken body of a crucified Christian. The crowd mocks them as atheists because they refuse to bow to Roman gods. They call them cannibals because of rumors about the Christian ritual of eating bread and drinking wine. They hate them because they preached exclusive worship of their God, which conflicted with the Roman tradition of religious pluralism and the status cults. And Nero, adorned in lavish robes, sits high above the scene, watching with a satisfied smile. His court musicians play cheerful tunes to drown out the screams, and dancers are around him. For Nero, this is not just punishment, it's a theater. So how should Christians under this kind of perverse persecution behave? What are their duties? What is going to be their response to such hatred and mockery? How are they going to change the false perspective of those who hate them? How are they going to make them understand what Christianity is? Revolution? Swords? Insurrection? What would you do? And then you have this letter from Peter. In his letter, Peter challenges them to go against common sense by encouraging them to willingly and even cheerfully follow the rules and decisions made by the authorities, whether they are top officials or local leaders, as long as those rules don't conflict with their ultimate loyalty to God. Peter says to them, submit to every human institution for the punishment of wrongdoers and the praise of those who do right. While Christians were to have a special care for fellow believers, they were also expected to show respect to everyone, regardless their faith or role in society, treating all people with honor. And Peter in his letter speaks directly to Christian servants, many of whom were slaves, encouraging them to obey their masters, even if those masters were non-believers or treated them harshly, and to remain committed to their responsibilities despite tough circumstances. Likewise, he advises Christian wives to respect and support their husbands, even if those husbands don't share their faith, while reminding Christian husbands to treat their wives with understanding and fairness. Peter frames this approach as the way for the early church to influence the world and respond to persecution by maintaining respect, staying steadfast in their roles, and acting with integrity toward everyone. All Christians should respond to Nero's evil mockery by walking the narrow way. But one more thing, says Peter, verse 8. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, and tender heart and a humble mind. Peter encouraged the early church, despite their suffering, to stand out by being united in their views and feelings, showing brotherly love and a deep sense of togetherness. They were called to be one mind, compassionate and united, not just in thought, but also in heart, loving each other as siblings would. And the term mind in this verse signifies the whole inner man, including both the intellect and the affections, what we call figuratively both the head and the heart. For instance, to have the mind of Christ in us is to feel and think as Christ did, to have the same views of truth as he had, and to be similarly affected by these views. So Peter tells the Christians to feel the same, view the world through the same lens, and to be all affected in the same way by what we believe. Imagine a team in a rowing race. Each member has their own oar, and they are all seated in the same boat. If one person decides to row to the left while another rows to the right, and others paddle at their own pace, the boat will spin in circles or drift aimlessly. But when the team rows in sync, following the same rhythm, aiming for the same goal, and listening to the captain's instructions, the boat glides swiftly and smoothly toward the finish line. Having unity in mind is just like that. It means being joined in judgment, following the same rules, and being aligned in purpose, so we move forward effectively. Without it, we are stuck going nowhere. With it, we make progress and glorify God as a unified body. But this is not all. While we have a united mind, we must show kindness, humility, and respect to everyone. And these aren't meant to be private attitudes, hidden in the heart. They should show up in how we speak and act towards others. When Peter talks about being kind and united, he's not saying, have good thoughts. He's calling for practical love, kind words, thoughtful deeds, and a visible care. Friends, we are called to feel love and also to show it. It is not enough to keep love inside. It has to be lived out. Because if we only display kindness without genuine heart, it becomes empty and fake. That's hypocrisy. We are called to feel and show love at the same time. One cannot be without the other. Christians, dear friends, Christians make an impact by living their faith authentically. You cannot just say you feel compassion or brotherly love. You got to prove it through your behavior. Inner virtues, no matter how noble, lose their meaning if they don't show up in real life. When I was 22, a few years ago, I was caught up in the pleasures of the world, living without any real sense of purpose, focused only on the moment. And one Saturday, a friend invited me to a party. That was my usual routine on weekends. So I went alone without much thought. The party was nearby, and we walked together. And I kept asking, where it was, this party? But he just kept saying, oh, it's just around the corner. We walked for 20 minutes. And he suddenly pulled me to a big house. And before I knew it, I was inside. To my surprise, it wasn't an ordinary house. It was an evangelical church. I found myself in the middle of a youth service. I felt confused, but for some reason, I stayed through the songs and the teaching. And when the service ended, a group of guys came up to welcome me and to hug me and say how glad they were to see me there. And my friend admitted, I'm sorry I lied to you, but this was the only way I could get you to come to church. And he was right. But while I was there, I saw something I'd never seen before. Young people my age talking about God with sincerity and showing genuine affection to each other and to me. They were truly happy and enjoying themselves. Their behavior and the way they spoke to one another was warm and kind, which felt so different from the world I was used to. In my circle of friends, it was all about mocking, swearing, and bullying. But these people were different. They didn't need alcohol or drugs to have a good time. And that really shocked me. So at that time, I couldn't stop thinking, these people have something I don't. And I want what they have. That was in my mind. And that moment marked the beginning of my conversion. But my point is this. Their love and behavior stood out to me. They were completely different from the world. They were truly like salt and light. And that's what caught my attention. So dear friends, if we want to make a real impact on the world, if we want to make a real impact in Norwich, we have to live out our faith. We need to show what genuine Christians looks like. And this isn't just about following a moral code or starting a moral campaign. It is deeper than that. It's about a real change of heart that starts from within. It is about a reformation of our minds, something that only happens when we truly love God. Because when you love God, you will be willing to sacrifice anything for Him. If you love Him, you will have a tender heart. You will have humble mind. You will be kind. You will show mercy even to your enemies. And God's favor will be with you. And you will be able to follow the next command. Verse 9. Do not repay evil for evil, or reveling for reveling, but on the contrary, bless. For to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. And here it gets tougher. One thing is to show love and kindness to others, but not taking revenge when someone is hurting me. Is it challenging? Of course. Is it contra-cultural? Sure. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. Absolutely not if Christ is in you. In the quiet stillness of Gethsemane, under the cover of night, Jesus prays, his heart heavy with the weight of the cross. Suddenly, a mob approaches, led by Judas, one of his own disciples. Armed with swords and clubs, they come to arrest him as though he were a criminal. Judas steps forward and betrays Jesus with a kiss. The betrayal is personal, cutting deep, but Jesus responds not with anger or insult, but with grace. He says to Judas, "Friend, do what you came for." Even in betrayal, Jesus calls him friend, refusing to repay evil with insult. As the soldiers seize Jesus, Peter, overwhelmed with fury, draws his sword and strikes the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. But Jesus stops him. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus commands. "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword." Instead of allowing violence to escalate, Jesus heals the servant's ear, demonstrating mercy even toward those who have come to harm him. Dragged before the Sanhedrin, Jesus stands silent as false witnesses accuse him. The leaders hurl insults, mocking him, twisting his words, and demanding that he prove his divine authority. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus answers truthfully, "You have said so. But I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." His words provoke outrage. They spit in his face, strike him, and slap him. But Jesus does not retaliate. He does not return insult for insult. Instead, he endures in silence, trusting his Father to vindicate him. Nailed to the cross, Jesus faces the ultimate humiliation. The soldiers gamble for his clothes at his feet. Passers-by mock him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he is God's Messiah." Even one criminal crucified beside him joined in the insult. Yet Jesus responds with a prayer, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." In the face of unimaginable suffering, Jesus offers forgiveness rather than condemnation. His words embody the principle Peter now teaches us, repaying evil with blessing. When Jesus walked the earth, he endured some of the most unjust and unkind treatment imaginable. His character and actions were maliciously misrepresented. He was subjected to cruel insults. Despite being perfectly innocent, entirely selfless, and the greatest benefactor humanity has ever known, constantly helping others and embodying divine perfection, he was denied even the basic respect owed to any human being. Instead, he was accused of being a demon-possessed blasphemer, a false teacher, and a troublemaker. He was labeled as glutton, drunkard, and a friend of sinners, all to discredit him. Yet, Jesus blessed them. Dear friends, what has this fallen world done to you that you cannot forgive? Is it in your heart to repay evil for evil? Have you ever been treated unfairly, mocked, or wronged by others? How will you respond? Will you seek revenge? Refuse to forgive? Hold on to hate? Or will you follow the example of your Lord? Jesus said, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." And now Peter says, "Bless, for to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing." Dear friends, no matter how badly a Christian is treated or how much hurtful language they endure, their responsibility is not to retaliate or seek revenge. We shouldn't repay evil with evil or follow the old eye for an eye approach. And the ground for us to do this, even to our enemies, is the mercy we received from God. So, our attitude is crucial. As Christians, we can live on one of three levels. We can repay good with evil, which is the satanic level. We can repay good for good and evil for evil, which is the human level. Or we can repay evil with good, which is the divine level. You choose. So surely this was a big challenge for the persecuted church under Nero's brutality. However, they should have remembered that Jesus made it clear to his followers that they should expect persecution. Jesus said, "A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you." He warned that his followers would face tribulation in the world, be accused of evil, and be hated by many for his name's sake. He foretold they would be excluded, insulted, and have their reputations attacked simply because of their connection to him. And the predictions Jesus made came true for the apostles and many early Christians. They were despised, mistreated, insulted, and slandered, regarded as the lowest of the low, the filth of the world, and the garbage of all things. They faced constant troubles, confusion, and relentless persecution. They endured tremendous suffering, becoming public spectacles of ridicule and hardship. Some were tortured, flogged, imprisoned, stoned, sawn into, tempted, or killed by the sword. Others were forced to wander in sheepskins and goatskins, living in destitution, affliction, and torment. They roamed the deserts, mountains, caves, and hidden places just to survive. Throughout history, Christians have faced the hostility of the world. So, dear friends, those who are committed to living out the principles of Christianity must expect persecution. No true Christian can journey through life without experiencing firsthand that this world is not their friend. Jesus said, "If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, and I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." I don't want to scare you, but are you prepared? And just let me add a very quick note in this message. It is not against Christian values to use legal or proper means to protect yourself. If someone has harmed you and might do so again, it is completely okay, even wise, to take steps to stop further harm, like addressing false claims or preventing more insults. This isn't just about you. It is also for the good of others, and even for the person causing the harm. However, this must never come from a place of revenge or wanting to hurt someone back. The goal should be to set boundaries to correct wrongdoing, not to get even. Even when standing up for yourself, it is important to avoid unnecessary or unfair actions. Accountability can be constructive, but it should be handled without bitterness. So friends, personal revenge should never be the focus. For instance, if someone is attacking you verbally, it might be necessary to clear up lies to protect your reputation or to stay effective. But make sure your response is not angry or harsh. Keep your words calm, honest, and as kind as the situation allows. Okay, so you might ask, why should I listen to Peter? What's the reason? Well, Peter answers by quoting Psalm 38 in verse 10. For whoever desires to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. Dear friends, do you want to love life and experience good days? Then follow Peter's message. Show kindness, love, have a unified mind with your fellow believers. Do not take revenge. Keep your tongue from speaking evil or deceit. Turn away from wrongdoing. Do good, seek peace, and actively pursue it. That's the secret for having a good life on this earth. And I know this goes completely against the culture around us. It's a radical different way of thinking that challenges everything we have been taught about what it means to live a good life. This world, the world's idea of a good life is often wrapped up in sin, overindulging in everything. Sex, money, fame, and popularity is considered the ultimate life. But that kind of life is empty, destructive, and ultimately harmful. It might offer fleeting moments of indulgence, but it lacks true satisfaction. Dear friends, the real good life is not found in anything this world offers. And just take Solomon, the wisest man after Jesus, as an example. He had everything. He could have surpassed any modern politician, superstar, or celebrity in wealth, power, fame, and even in the number of women in his life. Yet, he despised all of that. He hated life. At the end of his days, when he looked back, he despised all because he had lived for self-indulgence. And he offered this crucial piece of advice. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. In other words, get your life on the right path early. The truly good life, the one filled with meaningful days, is a life centered on God. All the wealth, fame, achievements, and indulgence are empty. Vanity of vanities, Solomon called it. And his ultimate message was, remember God because He is the key to the good life. And now Peter reminds us of the practicalities we must follow if we want a good life, even amid suffering. Because remember, he was writing to people whom circumstances were far from ideal. They were persecuted, hated, and misunderstood. Believers living as strangers in a hostile society. These early Christians experienced anything but the good life from a worldly perspective. So Peter tells them that if they want to love life and see good days, it is all about their attitude, not their possessions or circumstances. He urges them to approach life with harmony, sympathy, brotherly love, kindness, and humility. And also, Peter tells them, step your tongue from speaking evil and deceit. And the word stop or refrain here means to completely cease, to put an end to using your words for harm. Because words can be a weapon. Proverbs 15:4 says, the soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Proverbs 18, from the fruit of their mouth a person's stomach is filled. With the harvest of their lips they are satisfied. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Friends, when someone wrongs you, you are not to respond with the same morally bad attitude. Our words should be under God's control. And it is not only about no swearing or cursing. It is also about not using our words to manipulate or to deceive or to slander. Socrates once said, the misuse of language brings harm to the soul. And he wasn't talking about bad grammar. He meant that when language is used carelessly, like when someone twists words for personal gain, it leads to dishonesty. Words are powerful, and misusing them for control or profit result in lies. You know what? Good writers understand that words carry meaning, truth, and freedom. They take their words seriously, using them thoughtfully and skillfully. Writers know that language can shape hearts and minds, and they work hard to make sure their words strengthen the souls of those who read them. We, as Christians, should think the same way when we choose the words we speak. We should care about what we say and how we say it. So consider this when you are speaking to your friends or to your family. Think twice about how you use your words. And Peter also says in verse 10, if you want a good life, let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. And the phrase turn away is strong, meaning to actively reject or completely renounce evil. Even when dealing with persecutors, we are to avoid all forms of evil. In other words, there is no excuse for us to do evil. Actually, we are called to do the opposite. Seek peace and pursue it. Both imperative. The word seek here conveys intense effort, searching for peace with all your might. Pursue carries the sense of hunting for peace with determination and persistence. Even in a hostile world where you face persecution, suffering, and injustice, you are called to make an effort, every effort to foster harmony and tranquility, even with those who oppose you. And this peace that Peter speaks of is more than the absence of conflict. It is a lasting state of tranquility that brings deep joy and happiness. Imagine two hikers who notice a beautiful stream in the distance. One says, "It looks peaceful. Let's stay here and enjoy the view." The other responds, "No, let's go to it and experience that peace up close." Peter's words, seek peace and pursue it, are like the second hiker's response. Peace is not something that just happens to us while we sit still. It requires an effort and an action. Seeking peace means actively searching for ways to resolve conflict, promote harmony, and build understanding. Pursuing peace means continuing that effort even when it is hard or inconvenient. It is like a journey toward the stream. You have to keep moving toward peace in both your words and actions. It is not enough to simply wish for peace. We must take steps to make it a reality. Whether it is through forgiveness, kindness, or calming a heated situation, peace must be sought after and chased with determination. And I know this challenge, this message is challenging for everyone. And perhaps you might say now, I think I'm not a Christian because I don't love enough, I'm not humble enough, I cannot forgive, I don't pursue peace. But friends, this is not about salvation. You are saved by faith, not by deeds. If you are struggling to follow Peter's message, it does not mean you are not a Christian. It just shows what a baby you are, spiritually talking. But you cannot stay a baby forever in your faith. You need to grow. And the only way to grow is by getting to know Jesus more. Because the more you understand who he is, the more his character will show in your life, making it easier to live out Peter's instruction. And let me tell you, there is a great reason to take this seriously. Verse 12, for the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer. The reason you should follow Peter's message is because God is watching. And he's watching not to punish you, but to observe your life closely and hear your prayers. The term used for prayer in verse 11 refers to requests, petitions, and supplications. Prayers centered on your needs. It is not about praise, adoration, or thanksgiving, but rather about bringing our requests and help and cries for help to him. So why is God watching over us so attentively? It's so he can respond promptly to our prayers. The Lord is watching over you and ready to meet your every need. You don't need to rely on yourself to fix or escape your difficulties. You only need to bring them to the Lord in prayer, and he is ready to listen and respond. And what about those who do evil? Peter says, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Unlike the eyes of the Lord, which signify his omniscient watchfulness to protect, the face of the Lord often represents his judgment. People who live in wickedness, sin, and evil invite God's face to turn toward them in anger. But fear not, because who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? Says Peter in verse 13. And the point is this: if God will punish those who do evil, who will harm those who do good? God will not. And under normal circumstances, no other person will either. Nevertheless, people are perverse, and we do experience suffering for doing good sometimes. But even, verse 14, but even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. But in your heart honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. Is it better to suffer for doing good than for doing evil? How's that? Why? I will tell you next week. Okay. The early church was not intimidated or disturbed by the opposition it faced. Despite living in a hostile world, they responded with humility, a forgiving heart, and a refusal to retaliate against those who did them wrong. Dear friends, that's the way to live when our faith is under fire.